We do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. Kind of what we have in mind for you. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the information that was presented ahead of time. Did any of you have an opportunity to look at the videos at all, or look at any of the Yes, you're in the back. You just waving hi, or?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Is there a microphone?
Well, yeah, she has the mic, I don't, so you're just going to have
You're
to.
going to not talk very long?
Right, I'm not going to talk very long. You're welcome. Kind of what we're hoping to do is just sort of provide you some more information about FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. A lot of you have some experience with this, or you run into situations with faculty, students, staff, parents, third parties, etc. So our goal here is really just to sort of have provide some basic introduction, answer some questions for you about that. We do have our FERPA queen with us here today. So there'll be a couple situations we'll ask you all. Now, if you answer the questions right, you might get a charm. If you don't, you might get delayed. So
Did you rate your kids'
toy boxes. What's that?
Did you rate your kids' toy box?
Right. So anyway, the thing we want you to make sure you do is when you leave here today, if you have additional questions, we just want to make sure that we had a chance to sort of address this. Again, most of you, are working with students on a very, very consistent basis. These are the kind of scenarios that may present themselves to you with some regularity. So, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you have the microphone. We're also going to have some fun. Hopefully, you've got some snacks. If you didn't, please make sure you do. We even got a couple giveaway items to some lucky contestants. So we'll get to that too. Excitement all over the place. That's for FERPA.
What are the items first? Looking for grabs.
Okay, how many of you have heard of FERPA before? Almost everyone. So you know it's just protect the records of the students. And so what we're going to talk about today is just how you do that and how you know what you can and cannot talk about over the phone, with the parents, with the students, with another faculty member, with your peers, with other people in the college. So to start with, we're just going to give you a brief overview. This was written by the U.S. Congress in 1974, and it sets forth the regulations and the requirements regarding the privacy of student records. And you practically have to be an attorney to read through all of the documents that they have and all of the rules that they have. And today I was reading some of it, and I thought, written by an attorney for an attorney, and we have to interpret it. What you need to know is what can you and can you not do. So I want to make it clear, I'm not an attorney. So I had trouble deciphering some of these too. And if you have that difficult of a situation with a FERPA situation where you don't know whether to release the information or not, we need to go to someone above me to find out. And we always have that avenue, and we have done that on more than one occasion. And I'm sure that all of you have had difficult situations to deal with it. You just went to someone else in the college and we find out the answer. So there's always someone else to go to. But that's why we do this. We just need to protect the students' records. We need to make sure they have access to them. And we need to make sure that we control who has access besides the student and who we give that information to. Okay, we want to protect our students. And if you think, oh, well, what's the problem? Then think about yourself. When you went to college, as many of you did, or if you plan to go to college, what do you want that college to share about you? No matter who calls the college. Nothing. And that's what you need to think about when you are sharing information with someone over the phone other than that student. If I don't want it shared about me, should I be sharing it with someone else? And that's always the line that you need to never cross. Protect our faculty and staff. I've read, in fact, I read today about a college that shared a little bit too much, got a little bit too involved, and went too far over the line, and it took years for that college to recover from it. And if you, I also read this today, and this part I really didn't know before, but if you were to call up, say, you knew somebody's mom and she really wanted to know and you wanted to tell her, but the student wouldn't let her have the information, but you elected to just give mom and dad and whoever asked you all the information they wanted. If you're found in violation of that, you can be barred from having access to any student information for 5 years. Can you do your job for 5 years without having access to the student information? I couldn't do it, and so you have to know that there are penalties out there. Colleges can, we need to protect the institution. The school could lose their money if we're found in a serious violation of FERPA rules. They have never done that to a college. And we don't want them to ever do anything like that to us. So you have to make sure that you protect the college as well as yourself all the time. And uniform standards across the colleges and universities, that's important. It's even important that we have standard procedures throughout our departments. And this happened just maybe 2 weeks ago at our counter. A husband wanted his wife's schedule, and we said, no, your wife will have to come and get her own schedule. He moved down the registration counter to one after the other person, and I would go and stand behind them. He finally left. But he was bound and determined to get that. We have had students who have gone downtown to find out if they can get their wife, husband's, girlfriend's grades. When that does not work, they come out here and they'll try everyone at my counter. And that's why it's so important, especially in registration and in all of your offices too, that you're all consistent. Like you have one member giving out information, but the others know that they need to stop that student. So make sure that it's consistent across your counter. And I know that we have done that too. And I think I've scared them so badly that they always check. I mean, when they get in a situation they don't know, check. And that's what you should do too. If you don't know, ask. And then to meet the federal regulations, of course, which we're always trying to do at all times. I'm done talking about that. No, I'm done talking about that. You want to speak to it? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the advantage of how this protects our faculty and staff in the institution is that we're consistent across the college. And we will have, particularly parents, this is sometimes coming to college is new for them. They're used to having access to their students' grades and information. If we consistently say these are the federal guidelines, this isn't SEC that's doing this, is in compliance with the federal rules. They're not being jerks or trying to prohibit you from doing anything, it's just we have to comply. So it always helps to sort of have that thing you can fall back on and say, there is a federal regulation that we are in compliance with. Once your student becomes a college student, once they're enrolled in classes, they qualify for FERPA. And so, generally what I'll say is, it's really helpful to say, things like, we're happy to disclose information to you provided we have a release, because there are federal guidelines that we have to follow. But if we're consistent, if we know that we all have to comply with it, and we all do that, then that really makes it easier for you to say, I'm not just being a pain, I'm complying with the regulations, and that's really important.
So what can we say when they want information about our student? You don't know, when you're on the phone, you don't know if you're talking to the student. You know you're talking to mom, or you have someone at the counter and you're not sure if it's the student or not. If you look in the college catalog, we have a list in there, and it's on page, what page did I tell you? 164. And it tells you exactly what we can and cannot say to someone over the phone about one of our students. The name, the major that they are currently in, so we could say that Rose is in business administration. And then we can tell them that she's been here for 1 year. And she's currently enrolled. She has not graduated. And we don't know, she didn't send us a transcript, so we're not sure what her previous school was. She's not graduated from this college, and she's not on the honor roll.
Sorry, Rose.
Sorry, Rose. You fell down. And that's it. Now, anything else that you elect to share with that person over the phone would be inappropriate, probably. You do not share grades. That is the #1 violation that I hear in our department, or not in our department, but in student services in general, is sharing grades over the phone with someone. We have moms call us all the time, and they say to us, I call every quarter and you give me the grades over the phone. No, we don't. But who does give that to you? Because I'd like to speak to that person. If we ever hear of someone doing that, we will go over and speak with them and say, please don't give out grades over the phone. #1, how do you know it's mom? How do you know it's the student? I've had my work study students call and say, can you tell me what my grades are? And I know who they are, and it's like, absolutely not. I will not tell you what your grades are. Students can either request a transcript, or they can go onto WebAdvisor and they can look for their grades on there, because they are available almost the minute the instructor puts them in. Within 1 hour, the student can see them. So there is no reason to give out grades over the phone. Even if the student owes us money, they can still see their grades and they can still run their own transcript. So there is absolutely no reason for any of us to have to give them their grades over the phone. And you shouldn't be giving them out to anyone else. And we have moms and dads who try diligently every quarter. You know, they call almost every person in registration to do it, because they call until they find the weak link. They will call everyone and ask the same question and try to trick someone into giving them what they want. So please be diligent in, if you need your grades, how do you get them? You go into WebAdvisor, or you come to the college and you order a transcript. You don't even need to come to the college. You can order your transcript online too. So you never have to leave your home if you don't want to. But we will not give them out over the phone.
Change the slide.
Okay, you did? Okay. At the counter, we have, it is truly amazing. A guy will come up to the counter and give us Peggy's ID number. We looked up Peggy on the system, and then you look up at the student and you know you're not talking to Peggy. Oh, she said it was okay. Then what do you need to do? You need to look and see if we have a release form. And I don't know if all of you know this, but there is a, help me out on the perk screen, what do we put up?
ROI.
Release of information. And it says there who can have access to these records and why. So if you don't find that, the student is not there, there is no signed release form, then you cannot talk to that person that's standing in front of you about anything about the, do not print them a schedule, do not print them a student's grade, do not give them any information. And the easiest way to not give out information about a student, don't look them up. Don't pull them up on your computer. You can certainly talk to that person in front of you about college policy. That is perfectly acceptable. Over the phone, you can always talk about college policy. But if you don't want to let any information slip about this student, don't look them up. If you don't look them up, you can't even make a mistake and say anything about that student that you know that you shouldn't release. So just don't look them up. Just talk to the person, and everyone in here knows what college policy is. You know how you can get that information. You know what to look for. And this is what we do with particularly moms and dads who call us about students who are on probation or suspension. We talk about the suspension policy. We talk the probation policy. We talk about how you get off of either one of them. but you have said nothing about the student because you didn't look them up. You don't know if they're on suspension, you don't know if they're on probation. Mom might tell you that they are, but you don't know that, you didn't look them up. But you can certainly open, if you don't know the policy, open the catalog. It's all written out right there in the catalog. You can read it to them. And you can tell them exactly how a student gets on probation, how a student would get suspended, and then how to reverse that process. Okay?
Sorry, going about next things.
Oh, okay. And so that's my recommendation if you're talking to someone over the phone, whether it be the student, the parent, a friend, or whoever you're talking to. Don't look the student up. Then you can't make a mistake. And then you don't have to worry about if you're in violation of the policy. So what's next?
All right, scenario.
Okay.
You get to use your wands now.
Yay.
I have a question.
Yes, you in the back of the hair.
If you take, like, if there's an incoming call or if you have an out call, is there different protocol?
If you call the student,
Correct.
that's a little different. You looked up the phone number. You initiated the call. They didn't call you out of the blue and you don't know who they are. Yes, sometimes I do, but just always be careful. If you initiate the call, then it's more likely that you do have we have that phone number on record. We have it in our system. We can verify that it's the information that the student gave us. You just need to use best practices. Are we going to make a mistake? Yes. Are you going to accidentally probably tell someone something you shouldn't have? Probably. But overall, you made the best attempt that we could. You need to not do it deliberately. And you didn't do it to hurt the college or the student. You practiced the best practice that we can, which is, these are the numbers that the student has always given us. When I called and left a message, it was the student who left his voicemail. It's about the best that you can. Okay?
And Brock, to that end as well, sometimes if you're in doubt, verify that you're talking to that person. Have them give you, if there's information that they can give you that you can verify. If you're calling them, you want to make absolutely sure, ask them to say something like in their record or whatever that would verify that this is in fact the person that you called.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like we do, with our scholarship, we do progress reports. We have a release that the students sign when they start the seminar. We reach out to the instructor. If we get an update from the instructor, we'll reach out to the student, say, hey, teacher said you weren't there, whatever like that. So we're initiating that call.
Right.
But then, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this when we have parents pretending to be students. Oh, yeah.
That's why you have to be careful on the phone. Don't look them up. Would you tell the student that over the phone? If the student calls and says, I need my grades, would you tell them?
But if they're calling in, or I called out and they pretended to be a student.
Again, why are we discussing grades over the phone?
Well, I'm not discussing
Okay,
grades, but
that's good.
then anything, it's like I called a student and I'm calling them back about a transcript, that they didn't do something, and the parent pretends to be them. So I'm to the point where I err on the side of caution and I don't discuss anything.
And I've read that many times in the FERPA manuals, it's just, you're 100% if you just never talk about any of it over the phone.
Yeah.
Just do FaceTime, maybe.
Yeah. We'll get that set up for you, Rose.
I need that.
Okay, audience participation time. I'm going to read these. You should be having them. So you guys get to answer, what would you do?
Financial aid received an email from a student from a non-SCC email. The email reads, hey, can you tell me what my refund will be and when I will get that refund? I filled out the electronics fund request and have been waiting for it to come to my account. Thanks.
Oh, you're looking at it.
Are you financially? I'm looking at financially. do you normally tell them?
Check it on their hub, under the student accounts, they can log in and see the information that was charged to them versus what their financial aid money's going to be. If they can't see both on the student account screen, they can look on the student account screen for the charges and then go to the financial aid screen, award screen to see their awards, and just subtract the financial aid from the charges from their financial aid. The difference would be an estimate of their refund.
Is she right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, the
I was gonna
warrants.
say, what refunds?
Okay, I don't know how to use it. I want to use this.
What I like about that answer is just that it's specific to policy, it's consistent across every student, that's what they do. And you're not giving out personal financial information or email, which may or may not be secure. So yeah, that's exactly right.
However, question.
So,
Yes.
If the student is right in front of your face, you can verify them because they have a picture right there on the screen. And they walk up and they say, can you tell me what my refund is? Can we give them that information face to face?
Yes, if you are absolutely certain that is the student. And if you're unsure, ask for their student ID. Tell them you want to see it. If they don't have their student ID and you have a picture of them up on your screen, ask for their driver's license. Make sure it's the student you're talking to. But absolutely, you could talk to them at the counter if they provide you with the IDs.
Testing out the reading glasses today.
Okay. A student spouse calls and says, "Can you tell me how much loan money my husband is eligible for? I take care of our bills and I want to make sure that he did what he was supposed to. What can you tell her?" No. Why would, yeah, that's another story. Carlos, why do we tell her no?
Well, because we don't discuss finances over the phone, and they're not students.
There's the absolute two best answers. She is not the student, and we're not going to discuss it with her over the phone. Absolutely. And you get the one, yeah. Is it
Did
good
you
one?
create these scenarios, Mike? Did you create these scenarios, Mike?
We all dream about.
Okay, here's one for anybody, because I know a few of you have had this happen to you. A frantic parent is at the front counter and wants to know where their student is. What do you do? John?
Usually, the information desk, I'll, ask for information of the student, and I'll write down a message. And usually, I would give it to the information desk, but 9 times out of 10, they can't do it, so I would have to do it myself and give that message to that student.
So what did you say at the very end there?
I would give the message to that student and tell the parent, I got it.
That's right. We have had situations, I don't think John's been there when this happened, but people who come here hunting for other people. Tell them to wait in student services and you will go and get the student. I know that we had someone here at one time who was roaming the halls looking for the person they were looking for, and we don't want that to happen. So always have the person who comes in and says, I need my son, I need my daughter, my wife, my husband. Tell them to wait in student services. Go and get the student and say, this person is here to see you. Would you like to come with me? And the student will either come with you or they'll head out the door. So just be careful with that. Yes.
What if it's an officer or someone? Sorry.
Patience. Patience.
We'll go ahead and answer now, that we'll cut out soon. That's a good question. We do comply with law enforcement. So if the police show up, emergency responders show up, that is an exception to the FERPA rules. We assist them fully. So yes, you can do that. Yes, you're Jack.
Should we ask for 2 forms of IDs? I'm just saying, I don't want a hit
If you
called
feel,
ID by
right.
my fault. I don't want the students to blow on my hands.
Yeah.
I don't know who works nights, but I I do, but, you know. Things can happen.
You feel so compelled, I guess you do.
I'm just asking.
What constitutes like law enforcement or like that? Is that like just like security, or is that like if you had like an investigator, or if you had, like,
We have had
like
both.
immigration, you know, like any sort of like,
They will come
government
in
official
and
type.
they will show you a badge.
yeah.
Usually if it's, and this has happened quite a few times, if it's FBI, INS, something like that, where it's not an emergency procedure, you probably want to direct it to Diana. So, Diana or something like that. And usually we will be the ones who will talk with the Federal Bureau or something like that. A lot of times they need a certifying official from the college if they're looking for information. So generally you just direct it. If it's an emergency situation, emergency responders should have some kind of identification or badge on them or something. They should be able to provide that to you if you ask for it.
But at nighttime, like, no one's here, like, Stephen leaves at like 6. So, they want to reach time. What do you want me to do with that?
What I would say is some of it depends on the nature of the request. If it is an emergency situation, we will respond, even if that means you need to go and help them find where the classroom is. If it's something where a lot of times, if it's something where they need documentation or they need paperwork, generally they need someone to sign something. So usually, they're going to have to come back when we're around, basically. So it really depends on what they're presenting to you. If they show up and there's imminent harm, danger, that kind of thing, they have to talk to that student now, we're going to get them there.
Law enforcement usually tells you what you're gonna do.
Right.
They will come in and say, and if you say, I can go and get the student in there, like, I'll be going with you.
Yeah, they usually,
go with me if I need to.
they usually
Yeah.
will eliminate some of the confusion for you.
Yeah, and then,
There have been times where they've called also wanting to know where a student is, could I send them to Stephen?
Yeah, that can be tricky because, again, you're sort of trying to verify who in fact is on the phone. It's really easy for anyone to say they're a police officer. Most times, in my experience, they don't usually do that.
we have had officers call, they give you their badge number, who they are, their phone number. I mean, they give you more information than I believe I've never had that situation where somebody tried to fool us that way. Maybe I was really fooled, I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't it come up on a caller ID? like-
It can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can. Sometimes so you lose it if it's routed through the switchboard or something. So in that case, that's another good point. If you are receiving a call and you saw it was like a 911 or Lincoln Police Department or something like that, and you're transferring that to someone, please make sure when they pick up that you explain to whoever you are transferring the call who it is that came in, because I may not see exactly where the call originated from. So explain, yes, this is an officer, here's what they told me, here's what the caller ID said when they came in. So we had some assurances, but don't cold transfer anybody. Try to-
So always forward them to one of you guys if it is a police officer online, or give them information on the phone.
Again, it's kind of what are they asking for? If it's, I need access to this, a lot of it depends. If it's emergency, you don't maybe need to to transfer call, if they're like, I need information, I mean, that might be something where it's like, they need to find a student now.
If you don't know and you don't feel comfortable, transfer the call to Mike or to Stephen or to me. If you don't, well, okay, Ron, you're on. That was
Better not
easy.
slip up.
That was easy enough, okay.
Extension again?
I wasn't given the phone with you. Here's a good one.
Okay. Here's a good one, he says. A parent calls and wants to know the test scores of their high school senior who has never attended the college.
So you pull the telephone message, please check the number and dial again.
Just hang out and run away.
Well, technically, they're not like in the student system yet because they're not an eligible student.
They've never attended here.
Yeah.
And FERPA doesn't even apply to them until they attend here, number one. But number two, why didn't they call high school?
Because they're parents.
I know.
Some of it.
And I wouldn't give these out over the phone. could be the neighbor who's jealous of the neighbor's son, and I'm just gonna call and see what his scores are.
So again.
How easy is that?
You kind of come back to sort of the best practice. Like if you, for whatever reason, know this is the parent, are they under FERPA because they're not enrolled? The bigger principle is, are they under the guidance of FERPA if they're not enrolled in classes yet with our institution and they're not yet? So the test scores, if it's prior to being enrolled and being admitted, are different than if they actually are attending the enrolled classes now.
When does the line transfer? Is it when the student registers? Is it when they start class the first day?
When they
Is it-
attend.
So they have to, so.
When a 17-year-old is in high school, their parents have all the rights. When a 17-year-old is here at the college, the first time they take a class, they have all the rights. It transfers from the parent to the
So
student.
once
But
that,
the day they
once
start,
that
not
bottom
before
hits
that.
the seat, the
Yeah,
first time.
the first class.
magically, it happens. Ooh, used the wrong thing. FERPA.
Okay.
Okay, here's a good one. This happens, a lot of you guys, when you're advising students or sitting down with somebody.
Okay, you got a student and a parent meeting face-to-face with a staff member, and they want to discuss the student's academic progress. Do you need a release?
Well, can you repeat that?
A student and a parent are meeting face-to-face with a staff member and want to discuss the student's academic progress. Do you need a release?
And you ask the student if they're okay, that you give information once the parent's sitting there.
You can get a verbal release from the student. Is it okay if I talk to your mom here about your grades? The student says yes, you're fine. If the student gets angry, and this happened just one time since I've been at the college, student got mad and left the room. Guess what?
That's not talking.
Conversation's over. The student wouldn't sign the form, they ran out of the office, and the conversation is over. All you need to do is say, is it okay we talk about your grades here with your mom? Verbal confirmation is fine in those circumstances. But if the student gets up and leaves, you're done.
When somebody has a release and, like, because, like, you fill it out and then it has like, who can you talk to, or like what, about what or whatever. If sometimes like the student, they'll just they'll just put like anything.
They'll put what?
They'll put like anything,
Oh.
or everything, or something like that.
Mhm.
So,
They said anything.
they said anything, so,
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, if they list something and they meant like.
We do get them occasionally where the student will say, you can talk to this person about my grades only. So that's the only thing you can talk freely about is those grades. If they want to talk about how you got your money, how much money you owe the college, do you have a, I don't know, I can't think what I was going to say. I don't know. Anything else, you cannot talk to them about it because the student specifically said grades only.
Now I recall, and this is probably a little more when I was in financial aid, but, you'd have somebody that would call and say, well, my son has a release on file. On the phone, and then we can talk about whatever, but, I mean, technically, if you're on the phone, so you still can't talk about it. So then you explain that to them, and then it's kind of like, well, why did I do a release then?
You have to, the best practices, Brock, that's what, you just have to, how sure are you that this is the parent? You're free to ask the parent some questions too, to make sure it's the parent of that student that you have on the phone. Can you tell me the student's address? Can you tell me the student's phone number? Can you tell me the student's date of birth? I mean, if you get confirmation on all of that, you're pretty good about, talking to mom over the phone. Just do the best you can.
I also, when I take in a release of information, I tell the student, I won't discuss anything with your parents on the phone that I wouldn't discuss with you. So if I can't verify your identity over the phone, I wouldn't discuss those things with you either. So I kind of let them know up front that that doesn't just mean carte blanche, that they have access to everything.
In registration, one thing I always tell them is we do not discuss grades over the phone with anyone. And maybe that's obsessive, but it's also keeps us safe, keeps the student safe, keeps the college safe. And I know it's extreme, but then you're sure that you've done the right thing when you get off the phone. Because there are so many ways that a parent can get that student's grades. A lot of parents have the students log on for their SEC account. And the moms go on there and figure out, you know, how much money do we owe? Is financial aid okay? You know, what are your grades? More moms than you know have the students' passwords to that account. So there's many ways they can get the students' grades.
Well, the parents created it.
Oh,
The
and the students don't even know the password. That's what we run into a lot.
That's good. You have a question there?
Yeah. Going back a little bit, when you said that FERPA applies when the student is the first day of classes. So what if a student, I don't give out, well, we don't give out test scores regardless, but if technically when they apply and they haven't started classes yet, they're not under FERPA,
You could talk to them.
you can give out test scores or in person or over the phone if you verify with them?
I wouldn't.
I mean, we don't, but I'm just saying.
Does anyone ever call and ask you for test scores?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And who called you?
Both.
Both, I'd say.
For high schools.
Yeah.
And counselors.
They want to know what class they're going to get placed into, so they want to know their
Okay,
scores.
that part you could talk about. You could say the student has a placement score, put them in this class.
Or-
Again, you kind of have to balance what can you tell them without telling them.
We get the student or the parents like, oh, what are they scoring? Why didn't they accept it?
Well, there's ways you can do that. So you can say here, okay, let's say here's the range for math 900, 0 to 41. Here's the break to the next beginning algebra class. Your student, or they could say this is the range for this particular class. They're taking math 950, whatever the case may be, something like that. So the line, it's kind of like, you know, we're asking that to use, there's the law, what can you do? And then there's sort of what's best practices as far as, even though there are things you can say, it's better for you as you approach to think, what can I tell them to address their question, but not give them more than they need to know? It's kind of ways on that need to know information. So if somebody calls and for whatever reason has a very legitimate need to have a test score, maybe we don't normally do that, but if in your professional judgment you're saying, yes, this person actually needs this test score and not just course placement information, by law, can you share it? Yes, they're not a student yet. If I can avoid sharing it, if there's another way I can tell them that information without giving them the test score, can I do that? I mean, I even do that with, with anybody basically. I mean, it's like, okay, here's the stuff that, even though I could tell you A through Z, all you really need to know is A and B. And so that's what I'm choosing to disclose to you, as long as it's relevant to what you're doing. And as much as possible, the intent is to sort of have you done everything to protect the student's information as much as you can. You know, sometimes, you know, when I go through my job, I think about it sort of if I was in a courtroom and they asked me, why did I do this? What would I tell them? Well, I verified the student was this person, this person, this person. I asked information and questions about who they are to determine that, yes, this is the person I was speaking to. I asked them what their educational need. I determined did they have a need to know this information relevant to the request, and did I tell them that versus everything else in their student file as well.
Question, when they sign that release of information, why doesn't that apply to a transcript? That's student information.
What do you need to transfer? Like,
You can't get one. And if your child signs a release of information, you have access to their stuff, and then you come in and want a transcript, you can't have one. Written request of a transcript.
They can have a transcript, but they're going to have to fill out a release form. The college is under the obligation to keep track of every single transcript that leaves this building. We have to have something written down as to where that transcript went, who requested it, and it needs a date, a signature, and where we send it. Every single transcript that leaves the building. And the ones that leave the clearinghouse, they send us a report on a weekly basis. Here are the number of transcripts we produced for you. Here's where they went, and here are the releases for those. And we have to do the same thing. We don't automatically just print one for someone who has the rights to their student accounts. You still have to fill out a request for that transcript. And no one, I know that this has happened before, I have not heard of it recently. Some of you at the counter can't see student grades never print that for anyone. We need to have a release, and we need to know where those grades went every single time they leave through the college. And if they have power of attorney, we just have the student or the parents fill out a request form. And we just put on there, the parents will sign their names, and behind it we just write mom. And we look at the power of attorney and we'll just make a note of that. So they can have a transcript, but they do need to fill out a release form.
This is kind of a related one, but I just wanted to say that.
Okay. A faculty member is requesting emergency contact information for a student that was injured in their classroom. What do you do? They have a need to know, and not only that, but if the health or safety of our student or someone else in the college is at risk, we're going to share what we believe is necessary to share in order to avert the crisis. And we will do that with police or whoever we need to share it with. That's not a blanket statement that we always share about this student. It means in this circumstance, until this is resolved, we're going to share what we need to share, just for the safety of everyone involved.
But there are times where we don't share information with the faculty, correct?
Faculty have do they have a need to know? If that student is walking down the hall and they say, who in the world is that? And you know, you do not need to tell that faculty member. Faculty only gets to have information about students who are in their class, want to be in their class, in their program, or they have a legitimate educational need to know about that student and the information contained in the computer about that student. And that's why we have the student services locked down, and we know exactly who has access to the student system. Before we got the system that we have now, it was wide open and everyone used it for anything they wanted to look up anything they wanted. Now we protect it and we keep that controlled so we know exactly who has access to the system and what they're using that information for.
Well, and I think that's a good definition to talk about a little bit. What is an educational need to know? Because that not only is between faculty and us, but that can be between departments as well. So basically, I guess the short version of the definition I would say to you is, I have an educational need to know if I'm unable to do my job without the information that you have. So if you're going to another department and you're saying, I need to know this about the student, and for whatever reason they said, what is your need to know? The answer is, I'm otherwise unable to perform the duties of my position without what you have over here. That's basically what that means. So sometimes, I've seen that with, well, I guess in other worlds, more faculty than student services staff, because we all have access to all the same information. There's a difference between an educational need to know and an educational really, really want to know. And there is a difference. And so that's kind of the benchmark is to say, are you able to perform the functions of your job without this information? Yes?
What if it's an outside source that needs information, like for housing verification, or they're attending another college and need to know if the financial aid has been canceled at your institution, so we can give them financial aid here at this institution instead. We show you, and they quote us sub, a Cal, an unsub that's still in a pending status for disbursement here at SEC. When they ask stuff like that, they need to know information from college to college or financial aid office to financial aid office. Can you release information?
Yes, because the student has attended here and they verify that the student is attending there, and FERPA guidelines apply to both institutions, so therefore you can share college to college.
Yes.
I get an email from a faculty member asking if I talked to the students after they created a retention alert for me, or sort of on what, if I contacted them via email or phone, or sort of on what days, so they can verify sort of like if they're trying to talk about like changing a final grade, or if seeing that the student sought help for whatever issue came up.
educational need to know,
Okay.
yes.
And a lot of times in situations like that, you're gonna hear sensitive information about a student. Sometimes they'll tell you things that maybe, and this isn't maybe as FERPA as much as just general privacy and confidentiality for students.
Right.
What can you tell them without having to tell too much? So you can say, yes, the student's receiving assistance, or yes, we've got them connected to resources. You may not need to go so far as to say, yes, they're now taking their medications and they're now working with whoever they may be, those kind of scenarios. So you can just give that kind of stuff, but like I said, it's just generally being cautious about what it is that you're saying and keeping your students' confidentiality and privacy, et cetera. And I know you guys, you do that all the time, that's pretty much common. Okay, we're running low on time. Any other final questions that you have? I think we've probably covered the rest of our scenarios here. Anything pressing right now?
Now we've got grades. We also need to touch on grade point after students, because that, I hear a lot is mentioned on that. And that's something else that we should be.
In your catalog, it'll tell you what you can release. A GPA in there?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Anything about grades in there? No. Here's what you talk about right here. When you get to the end of this list, you're done talking. We're done.
Yeah. And we have a lot of students that call in, they wanted they're filling out a application for grad school, what have you. They get pretty nasty.
I know they do. And
I just say, request a transcript and you can have it.
Or they have access to that information online.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it's been a long time.
Right.
And I said, then you'll have to request a transcript.
They would probably need to do something new with it.
And the best way to do that is electronically through the clearinghouse. So they can get it the same day. Yeah. Unless they owe us money.
Madam Mayor, Sabrina Brock, I started getting that first.
Yes. Does like special accommodations and stuff like this fall under the FERPA?
ADA,
Yeah.
all different animals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You need a bigger animal, too. Go ahead, Sabrina.
So for instance, when we have students at the counter and they're wanting to fill out their self-advising sheet for the program and they need their grades, and we know it's a student, can we give their grades over the counter though? Is that okay?
if you're sure that it's the student,
Yep.
they can show you their ID. You can verify that it is the student, then you can talk to them about their grades.
Okay.
If you're not sure, if the student is not there, don't do it. Or ask us. Ask registration. We'll look into it.
Okay.
Carl's concerned.
What about confirming, if they say, oh, I see I have a balance of several $100 or whatever, and say, yes, that is, I can confirm that is your balance still owed, or say, look online, or what you're seeing is accurate. Because we get that a lot in financial aid, which is not our department, but we get that a lot. The transcripts on that.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between offering information or sort of confirming information. If they call and you've done all your due diligence, you said, yes, this is Bob Jones, and yes, this is his address, and yes, I see I have a balance due. If in your reasoned approach, that's who you're talking to, basically right then, you're confirming what they're seeing. To me, that's sort of different than saying, well, let me tell you what you owe because you don't know. You're not giving them something they don't know.
So don't give them anything they don't, obviously balance or account due balance is not on your list, so that we won't give out. They indicate to us that they already have a balance, and that's confirming this one.
And I've worked on phones quite a bit before I worked here, and that was our practices when we worked with lenders and things, is if they disclose the information to us, we can, as an example, they say, I see $2,400 on my screen, and I can say, yeah, that's what I see too. It's not the same as giving them the information.
Or something more generic, do I owe a balance? Something as simple as that, to say yes or no.
Yeah, because again, you're not giving specific identifiable information. A balance could be 2 cents, it could be $2,000. Real quick, when in doubt, I would say, if you don't know, best practice is to give your list of information. Usually the way I'll explain it is, if you are unsure, usually getting a release is the safest way to do business. If you get one, first off, I wanted to show you, you guys know where to find them? Basically, on the hub, if you just do the search, lot of times students have asked me, I guess, what should I put over in this area? You know, what should I put about what information I'm releasing? And I think it's an important conversation to have with them about what exactly do you intend to share. Because if they're like, I don't care what you tell my mom and dad, you can put, you know, all, you know, academic and educational records, something very generic that way. If they are specific about, you can only talk about my grades with my uncle, for instance, make sure they spell that out. You know, because I think somebody said earlier, everything means everything, and sometimes students don't really think about that when they're filling out a form. So I think it's a good second question for them to say, okay, you can do a release, but make sure that you know what it is you're requesting of us, because sometimes students maybe don't think about the fact that they get that. If you get a release information, please, after you have received one, please turn it into the registration office so that we can scan it in the file so we know it exists. And you can locate if somebody has a release on the perk screen. You all should probably have at least view access to that to see, you know, fix that. Any questions about how to fill out the form?
Oh, I got a question on that, Mike.
Sure, yes.
We've had some instructors ask us, like when we get a release for our scholarship for our students that they do at the seminar, but when we send out the information for an update on the students, we've had some instructors are like, well, I need to see a release about this before I will say anything back.
Educational needs to know.
Okay.
You're doing your job, basically. Okay. It's within the institution. It's actually good that they're thinking that way. We'd rather faculty be thinking about what they should not disclose as far as just sort of passing it out, you know, to everybody. So I think that it's a fair question, and we do get that. You can just assure them that under FERPA, you are covered. This is an education you need to know for you to be able to perform your job functions.
Okay.
So final notes, if you want more information on FERPA at SEC, please talk to registration. It's also in the student handbook and catalog as well. And hopefully you guys still have that email I sent you, because those videos are pretty useful, I thought. You know, they're not specific to SEC, but I think they're pretty short and sweet, kind of get to the point. If you have questions about FERPA, please don't hesitate to ask. We did record today's session. We also plan on doing this with some regularity, because we know a lot of times we have new staff who are coming in, and you have situations that come up in your jobs. So we're looking to probably duplicate things like this every 6 months to a year, something like that. We'll just kind of figure it out as the need presents itself. I think the one committee has some other things for us here today.
Under 2 chairs in this room are the pink post-it that says, FERPA is fun. So if you have a pink post-it note under your chair, you win a prize.
Oh, my chair is really dirty.
There's one on that side of the room, but I don't remember where.
Probably in this room.
That's good information. Pardon? Yeah, it was good. Nice job, Diane. It's cool to be